Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Product in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight on some of the exceptional technology leaders we have as part of the LA community. We have a very special episode today. We are recording this on International Women's Day, and our guest, Margarita Mangino, is the co-CEO of Uruit, our sponsor, which is one of the very few women-led software development agencies out there. Super excited to have you on the show, Margarita. This is going to be a great one.
Hi, Ethan. No, I'm super excited. I have been listening to all the podcasts for a while, and so it's really great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, no, this is going to be a great one. I'm really excited for this, Margarita. But first, a word from our sponsors. But Margarita, not to put you on the spot here, but maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about Uruit.
Yes, of course. Well, at Uruit, we are a digital product development agency with 15 plus years of experience helping US companies to build web and mobile apps by embedding very fast with their teams. We have a team of expert full stack developers that can provide quality code and are helping companies like Bloomberg, Tony Robbins, and Macmillan to get the job done. So if anyone over there is looking for React, Angular, front-end developers, React Native, I don't know, back-end developers, even product and designers, we can be ready to start working with you very fast. And so you can tackle all your roadmap items for this year that we know that it's a challenge.
That's great. It sounds like you can really make a difference for companies that are trying to release code to customers. So thank you, Margarita. Product in LA is also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They're the largest professional organization for product and designers in LA. With more than 3,000 members from over 500 companies, they host monthly meetups, organize the Product Leader Council, where CPOs and heads of product connect in small 6 to 8 member pods. And they have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to build a better, more diverse next gen. To learn more about PMA, go to pma.la. To learn more about the mentorship program, go to pma.la/mentorship. Well, our guest today is Margarita Mangino, co-CEO and Chief Growth Officer at Uruit, and her past roles have included growth and marketing at Infocorp, and she ran operations for Endeavor, where she helped Uruguay's top entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. And one interesting fact you might find by looking at her profile, she's also co-founder of a renewable energy analytics company. Margarita, you'll have to tell us a little bit more about that. That sounds great.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, actually, we started, I don't know, it was like a year and a half ago with my husband, trying to understand where we wanted I don't know, to start a new company. And renewable energies sounded like really cool. Here in Uruguay, we are like one of the top countries. Actually, we are the second country after Denmark that on generation and consumption of renewable energy in the world. So we are very strong on that. And we said, hey, we have to use all this knowledge that we have and help the world to be better on that. And I don't know, we wanted to add like a little grain and of the world with it too.
Wow. So Uruguay actually has the second largest, you said, producer and consumer of renewables?
Yeah. Especially consumption, right? It's like we are the second world that use more renewable energy in the world.
That's amazing. All right. That's you learn something new every day. That's crazy. I guess going back to the beginning here. So right now you're CEO and Chief Growth Officer, one of the women-led software development firms, and then you're also working in renewable energy. What was your journey like into technology? Was this a straight path for you? Did you expect to end up, running a software development firm and also a renewable energy analytics firm?
No, actually, it wasn't. I believe that many of us, at some point it was, but not at the beginning. My first relationship with technology actually was when I was a kid. It was the mid 80s, and my dad was selling computers in Latin America, what
Okay.
was really pioneer, it's like he was the first of I don't know, I remember having like these small computers at home playing games, and it was something that none of my friends had.
Interesting.
So yeah, so it was like, I don't know, maybe I one of the first, right, like digital natives, because
Yeah.
I had that approach with computers very very early on. But then growing up, for me technology seems always was like easy. I don't know, it was something that I felt like it wasn't hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
But at some point when I was in my younger years, I actually felt like a really big attraction to fashion. So it's nothing related to to
Okay.
technology, and nothing
Especially
related
back
to
then. At this point where we are, technology and fashion are starting to come together. But in the
yeah.
it's earlier on, it was not the case. It was very much computers were one thing and they were big and blocky and it did some things, but fashion was very different. So yeah, that's a
Very,
very different
very
view from
different.
it back then.
Very different. And I remember like buying magazines in the US and using couriers to receive them in Uruguay, like Vogue magazine. It wasn't things that existed here. And the retail and fashion industry here in Uruguay was very immature at that moment. Now it's different, but at that moment was like, hey, if you want to do something related to this, you have to go abroad. So, but at some point I started to work very young. My experience, I started to work actually when I was 16,
Okay.
and my parents went to live to Brazil for the second time, and I didn't want it to go. And I don't know how I convinced my mother to leave me behind with my two oldest brother and sister. And I stayed with her business that was like cooking some cakes and pies for local bakeries and restaurants here in Uruguay. And that made me, I don't know, grow really fast and understand very quickly that I love cooking, but it wasn't my passion. It wasn't something that I wanted to do like when growing up. And
So
so I
you were
started to
16, just to take a step back. You were 16 living with your brother and sister and running a basically a baking services company where you're supplying bakeries.
exactly.
Wow.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But it was like that. And I couldn't do the delivery because I couldn't drive. Here in Uruguay, the license is after 18. So I had to ask my brother. My brother was the Uber, the delivery guy. And I was the one that do all the cooking and baking and everything. But it was a teamwork actually. And then when I was like 18, I had the opportunity to start working with the husband of one of my cousins, and he actually was the one that brought Endeavor, that is a U.S. An American nonprofit organization working around the world in emerging markets, supporting high impact entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So it introduced me to a world that I wasn't aware of. It was like a lot of companies dreaming really big, going global, and a lot of them were in technology. Because if you want to, I don't know, at that time, especially scalable business models usually involve. So
Right.
I started to understand a lot of and get a lot of businesses here that were doing great things. And I was like, okay, I was studying actually communication, especially advertising. So they were like for 3 4 years, and I said, okay, if I want to do advertising, I need to take the leap and go work to an advertising agency, right, to understand if it's what I want to do.
Right.
And that's what I did. I was studying in university, working at day, studying at night, and I went to work to this advertising agency. And I felt after working at Endeavor and seeing I don't know, understanding how businesses work, and I felt that I wasn't doing the impact that I wanted. It felt great, but it felt a little shallow. It was like I'm doing such a small impact that I want to get, I don't know, I want to be more involved in the business of these companies.
Right,
So
because
I
you had
convinced,
done that in the past, right? You had your experience as a
I
16-year-old running a business from, the finances to, I'm sure, finding new business to maintaining old business, the relationships, and actually even doing it yourself. So it makes sense that
yeah,
at that point you'd been exposed to different parts of the business, and so then you'd want to go and do more of that part of the business if you felt like you were kind of stuck in a role that was in a smaller slice that you were interested in.
exactly. It felt like it was like the end of the process, and I was losing all what's happening behind the strategy. I don't know. It was so much happening, and I was like, hey, I'm just doing such small things right here
Yeah.
that I know it helps because it has an impact in sales and in branding and a lot of things, but I wanted more. So I convinced my boyfriend, that actually he's my husband right now, to start applying to scholarships to study abroad. And that's how we went to Madrid actually to study. And I was still thinking in fashion by then. And I actually, my degree, I studied an MBA, but it was in a fashion business school. It was an executive MBA for in fashion. So
Nice.
it was nice and really cool. I had like, it was a really nice business school related to YESE, that is a very big business school in Spain. And actually, I had like professors from Louis Vuitton. I don't know, it was
Wow.
crazy the people we had talking to us. We had like these exchanges. We went to Paris, we went to Milan for a week to study there also. It was amazing, and I loved the experience. And when I get back to Uruguay, it was like, hey, how am I going to use all these here in Uruguay that is so far away of what's happening in Europe and in the US? And it was a little bit early for the industry. If I had done it like 5 years later, the story maybe would have been different. But at that point, the industry here was just starting, and technology was, I don't know, e-commerce and all of that was very young too. So I started to look for opportunities, and actually, I had the chance. I didn't want, but I was contacted again by Endeavor,
Okay.
and they needed someone to run mostly the services for all the entrepreneurs that the organization already had in Uruguay. And I was like, okay, it's like extending my MBA again. And I accepted the offer. It was like a really nice offer. I loved the managing director at that time. She's a great woman leader. And I went back and I stayed like for 4 years again. And over there I had the chance to merge like two areas. I was running the services, but there was also the necessity to run like the sales part of the organization, because we needed to make sure that Endeavor was able to actually have select more entrepreneurs every year.
Right.
And that's when I run into Pedidos Ya, that they are a big case here. They were acquired by a big monster in Europe, and then they are actually the same as DoorDash. So it was like a really, and they were just kiddos. Their company came from the thesis of their university degree. So
Wow.
it was crazy. They turned it into a business. They incubated in the university incubator, and now they are really, really big. So it was a great case study. And then I ran into another big case study here in Uruguay, a success that is the local. and they were the first in become a unicorn in this history of Uruguay. So that was when I really my career shifted. It was like, hey, what am I doing? What I'm going after fashion? If what's going on with technology? So I decided to leave Endeavor after that 3.5, 4 years. And I went really transparent with my boss because she was like looking forward for me to be her replacement when she left. And it was like
Okay.
a year or 2 years ahead. And I was like, hey, I was thinking like, if I stay, I have to stay at least 1 year until she leaves. And then I have to stay like for 3, 4 years more. And it was like, hey, my whole life is going to be Endeavor. And I don't want that. I want more. And I was really transparent with her. And I said, hey, I want to leave. So we decided to I define a date, and it was like 6 months ahead or 8 months ahead. I don't remember very well. And I started talking with all the mentors, directors, and other entrepreneurs, and I found these entrepreneurs from Argentina that they were an HR tech platform,
Okay.
and I convinced them to open the operations in Uruguay, and I run actually their operations for 5 years here
In Uruguay. Like you were the
in
Uruguay
Uruguay.
head.
Here in
Nice.
Uruguay, I'm in Montevideo in the headquarters of the company. But so it was like, okay, it was like a great experience. It was my first experience running like a company in technology. It was like an HR platform with a social network, benefits for employees, and a recognition program. So it was awesome to experience like not only the marketing and selling part, but how a product should be built, what were the needs of our users, and I was actually one of the stakeholders of the product team, right? I was bringing them all of our clients' needs and what the market was asking for. So after that, what I decided is that I wanted to keep growing, and Uruguay was too small as a market. So I decided to join the Infocorp team. Actually they are a product and technology company selling a digital banking platform for banks in Latin America.
Okay.
So that's when I started to travel. And at the beginning it was like, okay, I went a lot to Peru, to Chile, and to Bolivia. Those were my markets. And they were like actually very long sales process, but also long implementations. Like it took like 18 to 24 months to implement the digital banking because of all it involves, right?
Right.
In a bank.
Regulations. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it was also, I don't know, it was my first experience with a waterfall process and
Hmm.
deliverables. And it was hard, when I got the pandemic in the middle and we were starting to test a new digital banking platform in a bank in Bolivia. They hadn't had the people to test it. It was crazy, crazy times, right? And after that, after 2 years, I got the opportunity to come to Euroit and start working with the US market. And I love it. I love every part of it. It's like a very dynamic market, very, I don't know, always innovating, using the latest technologies, the latest methodologies, and always dreaming big and thinking big. And I don't know, I love this part of the job. And also it's like being on the other side, right? It's like I lived being part of a product team, like more as a stakeholder, and now
Yeah.
I'm part of helping that companies to have the best product ever.
That's great. And I guess going along this line and it being, International Women's Day, um, what is it like being, a leader in this world where it is more than not, dominated by men, especially in when you get to the technology in general, for sure. But then once you get to the software development agency world, I feel like that's even a smaller slice of a already kind of small pie.
I don't know. It's for me, it's like I never felt like I know there's a difference because I see it. I'm part of an inner circle of other CEOs that are CEOs at other agencies, and we are like 10, and I'm the only woman, right? It's like, so you leave it. But I, I don't know. It's like I love this world, and I don't know. At Euroit, we truly believe in the women-led software development agency. We are an agency where 60% of our leadership are women, and our numbers in product and design are high too. But I'm really what I really believe, and we are on a mission on trying to bring more women into the tech area
Okay.
too, because for now it's like only 5%, and we want that number to increase and be more. I also want to start working with more women founders, women CTOs, and trying to relate and support more that kind of business and have more case studies. But because I believe in diversity, it's like having different people thinking different, and women and men think different, that's for sure.
Hmm.
But also when we have Americans like we have now, or people from Colombia, or people from Uruguay, we all bring our own I don't know, identity to the table and approach, and I love that part. And but I I feel that we are getting there. It's like there's a big gap, and I have been reading recently that after COVID, we went backwards. Actually,
Hmm.
it was really hard, and we had like a big impact. But I don't know. We have to keep working and keep having leaders in the technology product and in the world, because it's like great examples for our daughters and the next generations.
Well, can you double click into the going backwards after COVID? That's an interesting data point.
Oh, I have to search the data, but I have like this friend. She actually was my boss, also in Endeavor in the first part of on my first
First.
is part of working there. That she's now the CEO of a New York organization that is called Pro Mujer.
Okay. Pro Mujer.
And yeah, and she is empowering women around around Latin America to have more opportunities. And I know that since the COVID, a lot of more women were laid off actually in the I was reading the other day that only in the layoffs from September and December, almost 50% of the layoff people were women, and more than 10% were Latins. So it's hard. We are going backwards. And in Latin
Yeah.
America, too, it's like there's a lot of women that went out of the possibilities of the business they were running, and
Hmm.
access to money and a lot of things. So actually, the gap that we had increased a lot. I can't remember the number right now, but it increased a lot. So it's like I don't know. It was like 130 years behind. It was like a crazy number. It was like, oh my god, we were behind, and now we are a lot more.
Yeah, and then going back to that figure, about 50% of folks who are laid off, general population, it may sound like, oh well, there's 50% women and men, but then if you remember that the pool of women in tech is so much lower, it's like 30% or 40% maybe. If 50% are being laid off, that is a disproportionate rate.
Of course, if you look at that, it's like, okay, 50-50, that's equality, right?
Right.
But if you look at the big picture, it's not equality. If you have like 20% were women and 80% were men, then if you lay off 9,000 people and 4,500 were laid off of women, what is the representation actually on that 20% that was at the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
It's
Well,
it's crazy.
and then that's part of acknowledging International Women's Day and bringing up these issues that they're spoken of sometimes, but it's super important to keep talking about them, because that's the only way that we will make these changes. Thank you, Margarita. And I guess bringing this back to LA, what is the most LA thing that's happened to you? It could be tech related or not. And I know you currently reside in Montevideo, but you spend a good amount of time in Los Angeles. So I'm looking forward to hearing your most LA thing.
Actually, the most LA thing I lived, it was like in the last long weekend on President's Day. I spent 40 days in LA and around California with my family, my kids, and my husband. And they were joining me in this crazy career of being there and here and here and there and traveling a lot. So it was summer break over here, and I decided to bring all the family to join me. And in this long weekend, we decided to go to Vegas, but we did it as we were really naive and went out on Friday at 5 p.m. And I believe that everyone that is listening and lives in LA knows that that's a crazy idea.
Friday on the holiday weekend, going to Vegas from Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see this is going.
Instead of like a 4 to 5 hours trip, it took us like 10 hours. And I don't know, it was really crazy. And I understood a lot after that long weekend of what people were talking about when we mentioned like this not going out on long weekends, or going out but at strange hours. So I get it now.
Oh my gosh. And for folks at home who may not be in the LA area, there's like a 2-lane highway, or 4-lane highway, I guess, 2 lanes on each side, going to Vegas from Los Angeles. It is highly trafficked, but it's just kind of a small little road. So when traffic comes on the holiday weekends, it is just brutal and savage, and you often find yourself in Barstow. But yes, that is a truly LA thing, Margarita. Spending too much time in traffic no matter what, but then certainly on the trip to Vegas.
I remember stopping at Starbucks, because we needed coffee to
keep going.
Yes, it was crazy, but it was an amazing weekend, so it was worth it.
That is awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Margarita, for joining us. This was a terrific conversation. I'm glad you were able to join the show. And I'd like to thank our sponsors again, PMALA and Uruit, available at uruit.com, uruit.com. If you want to speak more with Margarita, learn more about what they're working on down there, please feel free to reach out. I'd like to thank you again for listening to us, and we will catch you next time on Product in LA.